I still remember the sound that morning, that metallic, sickening snap. It wasn't just the crunch of the granite gravel I'd spent a fortune on, the kind you buy specifically because it packs down hard and holds its shape. It was the sound of my boundary, my privacy, being violently violated. It was a shiny black Cadillac Escalade. Not just any SUV, but the biggest, blackest, shiniest one on the planet with a ridiculous HOA logo. A gilded crest that looked like something they stole from a cheap coat of arms, barreling through the dust cloud. It left my freshly painted private property sign split clean in half behind it. Behind that heavily tinted glass was Veronica Sterling, the self-proclaimed empress of the Legacy Estates, driving across my red clay road like the whole county was her personal slip lane. And she gave me that wave, that smooth, dismissive, "You can't touch me" wave that just boils your blood. It wasn't friendly. It was a declaration of war. For 15 years, this dirt road has been more than a path for me here at the Whiskey Creek Ranch. It's the result of honest sweat, of grading and patching it every time the brutal summer storms washed it out, ensuring the heavy feed truck could get through to the barn. It was my artery, my peace, and until she arrived, not a soul had disturbed it. But Veronica's development, all stucco palaces and forced uniformity, brought a different kind of mindset, a kind that sees other people's property not as cherished land or hard-earned rights, but as lines on a map that just need redrawing for the sake of their convenience. When I saw those fresh tire tracks, expensive low-profile tracks, ending right at her HOA's back gate, I tried to be reasonable. I told myself it was an accident, once, twice, but then it became clockwork. 7:45 a.m., techno music blaring loud enough to spook my cattle, dust flying so high you could see it from the highway. It wasn't an accident anymore. It was her calculated power move, a daily statement that she was above the rules. I finally managed to intercept her one morning. I strategically parked my old rusty Ford F-250, a truck that's seen more honesty than her entire neighborhood, right across the road, and waited. She slowed down, not out of respect, but pure, unadulterated annoyance, rolling the window down halfway, and the cloying scent of expensive perfume hit me before her practiced porcelain smile did. "Morning, Mr. Dalton," she purred, drawing out my name. "Is everything quite all right? You look dreadfully stressed." I didn't try to be nice. I was past that point. "No, Veronica. Nothing is all right. You are driving on private property. This road is mine. You need to stop." She tilted her head the way you might address a slow child who just misplaced their crayon. "Oh, come on, darling," she sighed dramatically. "We're all neighbors. What's a little dirt between community members? Think of the greater good of the neighborhood commute." That phrase, greater good, coming from someone who just demolished my sign, it crystallized the entire conflict for me. It wasn't about the dirt. It was about her absolute conviction that her convenience superseded my legal rights. She ended the conversation by declaring she'd get the all-important HOA board to approve a formal easement, which she assured me was just a formality, drove around my truck, and spat gravel right into my face. The next week was a full-on bureaucratic barrage. First I got the letter, not from the county, not from a real lawyer, but from the Legacy Estates HOA, printed on glossy cardstock with that ridiculous gilded crest, declaring they had officially voted to incorporate Red Clay Road into their shared connectivity plan. Because, get this, regional harmony required it. It was signed by Veronica, with a self-important little flourish. Then came the community access vote picnic right near my fence line. Folding tables, expensive iced lattes, and Veronica on a megaphone, acting like a general before battle, finalizing the integration of my road. She wasn't just delusional. She was dangerous, wrapping her naked entitlement in the sophisticated language of democracy and community planning. That night, sitting on my porch, staring at the moonlit road that felt so contaminated by her tracks, I knew the polite phase was over. She wasn't going to be stopped by signs or civil conversations. She only understood consequences. My land, my sweat, my peace, it was all on the line. I picked up the phone and called Travis, my old friend and the only heavy equipment operator I knew with a PhD in mischief and a working backhoe. "Trav," I said, my voice low, determined, and entirely devoid of humor, I need you to come teach Karma a very serious lesson in rural engineering. A lesson about gravity. There was a long, satisfying pause, then his deep chuckle crackled through the line. Say less, Dalton. I think I know exactly where you're going with this. Tell me when and tell me how deep we're making it. The seed of revenge, no, justice, was planted. I finished my beer, the cold metal feeling righteous in my hand. Travis showed up before dawn with his old John Deere, a giant thermos of black coffee, and a grin that promised sweet, inevitable chaos. We meticulously surveyed the road, choosing the perfect spot, right after the blind rise where she always accelerated for the highway, the very last place she'd ever expect an obstacle. Deep enough for reflection, I told him. Just a perfect deep surprise. No physical harm, just maximum humbling. We spent hours carving a 4-foot deep, 3-foot wide trench, working until our backs ached, removing every scrap of fresh dirt. Then came the camouflage. Salvaged oak plywood, a thin scatter of local red clay soil, loose twigs, and dry grass. From the road, it was flawless. A beautiful, deadly trap disguised as just another patch of sun-baked red clay road. Travis leaned on his shovel, wiping sweat from his brow. Modern rural installation, he declared proudly, titled, The Consequences of Entitlement. We set the 2 trail cameras high in the mesquite trees for indisputable evidence, grabbed our lawn chairs and prepared for the show. The next morning, the silence was thick, electric, the kind you only get right before a storm or a disaster movie. Then, at 7:47 a.m., we heard it. The low, entitled engine growl, the faint thump of her generic pop affirmation podcast. Something about manifesting abundance. I swear I could smell the entitlement before the car even appeared. Travis nudged me from behind the hay bales. Showtime, buddy. Get your camera ready. She hit that curve fast, arrogant, predictable. The front tires rolled onto the plywood, a whisper of a creak. And then the sound of my victory, the crescendo of weeks of frustration. Crack. The plywood disintegrated, and the Escalade plunged, nose-diving into the trench. Headlights vanished, the back wheels shot up, then slammed down, and a massive puff of airbag dust and white powder exploded through. The open driver's side window, Veronica's, scream was something truly unforgettable, a high-pitched wail somewhere between shock and utter betrayal. Like the world had personally wronged her. She stumbled out, clutching her phone like a weapon, then delivered the perfect cinematic climax. She tripped over her own custom yoga mat and sent her large, complicated iced latte flying. It splashed dramatically, right across the hood of her now half-buried luxury SUV. Poetic justice. Served cold, sticky, and in 4K resolution. When Sheriff Hayes arrived, she was absolutely hysterical, shouting, "Sabotage! This is a criminal pit trap. I could have been killed." I, meanwhile, was all calm sincerity, presenting my laminated county deed and a detailed diagram of my erosion control project. "Sheriff, this is a necessary soil retention measure, an active work site on my private property. She's been trespassing for months." Hayes, a man who knows the difference between private and pretend, looked from the deed to the car to Veronica and sighed. "Ma'am," he told her flatly, "this is Mr. Dalton's land. You drove into a trench on property that does not belong to you." He refused to tow her out, saying she'd need a specialized crane, and added with a faint smirk for me, "Nice work, Rogers. Keeps the door-to-door salesman off, I bet." But Veronica didn't quit. She unleashed a fury of fine cease-and-desist letters from her legal cousin, Douglas, who, it turned out, was still in night school, and even an environmental violation notice printed on glossy paper. I knew she'd never stop, so I escalated. I went to the county clerk's office and found the ultimate weapon, an ancient, unrevoked 1985 development easement that explicitly prohibited the legacy estates from ever accessing or modifying my red clay. Wrote they were trespassing on legally, forbidden ground since day one. Armed with that truth, I hired the sharpest land use lawyer in the county, Ms. Reyes. We filed a massive civil suit for trespassing, property damage, and chronic harassment. The court hearing was legendary. We played the trail cam footage of her crash, which sent the whole courtroom into hysterics. Douglas, the lawyer, collapsed under cross-examination when Ms. Reyes pointed out he wasn't even admitted to the bar. And when Ms. Reyes presented the 1985 easement, Judge Arnett shut Veronica down cold. The verdict was total victory, damages paid, a permanent injunction issued, and the final beautiful blow. Veronica Sterling was removed from her HOA presidency and barred from any HOA involvement for 10 years. She stormed out, tripping over her purse, shouting about corruption, and the courtroom erupted in laughter. The peace that followed was absolute. The noise stopped, the letters stopped. The Escalade was eventually dragged out, a mangled monument to entitlement, and Veronica sold her house quietly. Now Red Clay Road is just Red Clay Road again. The trench filled with rainwater and wildflowers is a perfect scar on the earth, a monument to boundaries. I put up a final sign, just to be clear. Private property. Trespassers will be trenched. I didn't need revenge that destroyed. I needed justice that lasted. And I found that justice is often quiet, precise, and earned. It reminded me that whether it's an arrogant HOA president or a toxic coworker, you have to hold steady when someone tries to push you off your ground. So tell me, have you ever had a Veronica Sterling in your life? Someone who thought their convenience trumped your rights? How did you draw your line in the dirt? Share your story in the comments. I want to know how you defended your peace,